Most people bail and go start something new. Don't do that. Stick in your field. Because I did that on a few things. I got distracted a few times, but once I came back to helping people the way that I did and just dove into that 100%, things started happening. If you're discouraged at all at where you're at, keep your moonshot in front of you every day and just think of like, what's the one needle mover today that's going to get me closer to that?
Welcome to this episode of growthtofreedom.com. Let me ask you a question. How do you think your business could be impacted if you had a documentary under your umbrella as a business to support your business, to promote your business, to advocate for your business? Or what if you even had a documentary under your business umbrella, but it wasn't directly related to your business? How do you think it might change the perception of your potential clients, partners, advocates, and more? Is it possible that it could open doors to opportunity? Is it possible that it could get you connected to more affluent clients, buyers, prospects, partnerships, media, and more? Well, if any of that intrigues you at all, and maybe you're on one side of it going, no way, that wouldn't work, you're going to want to stick around and lean in. And if you're on the other side going, yeah, I could see how that would help, you're going to want to stick around and lean in. Today, we have a unique opportunity to be with a very good friend of mine that we've known each other. Scott, how long? About 15 years now? Something like that?
Easily
12 to
15 years. Yeah.
And we have Dr. Jeremy Weiss to thank for keeping us connected, even though we had met before his reconnect through Vinny Fisher, who's also a good friend of ours mutually. And if you're looking for a way to be able to grow your impact, grow your business, and also be able to take advantage of something and stop playing small, you are going to love our guest expert, Dr. Scot Gray, today. Why? He is someone that I've had a unique ability to work with for some time, and he follows the Walt Disney motto, which is being a visioneer, being an imagineer. And you know what? Why not you? Why not now? And why not have a global impact if you can? Now, he's also someone uniquely capable of being able to implement step by step. So although he has a grand vision, he also knows what it takes to bridge the gap from here to there. And we're going to talk about some of that today. He also runs a great company. You can go check out at connectrelief.com. All the links and resources we'll talk about today are going to be in the show notes below. So go to Connect Relief, that starts with a K, connectrelief.com, to learn more about what Scott's doing in the medical field, functional medicine, and a whole lot more as well. So Dr. Scott, welcome to this segment. I'm just so grateful that we can reconnect here and have this conversation today.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Always fun talking to you, man. And any chance I get, I'm going to take it. So excited for our conversation.
Yeah. Now, by the way, so you've got this new documentary that you're participating in, helping co-produce, and all kinds of fascinating, crazy thing called Tomorrow Man on Walt Disney, right?
Correct.
And you're part of this production crew and all this sort of stuff. So talk about it a little bit, and why did you decide to step into it?
Yeah, definitely. So as you know, Dan, but I'll let everyone else know, Walt's kind of my business hero,
Yes.
right? As he's the guy that I followed. I love the way that he ran his business. I loved how he spent his time. I loved how he worked with his employees. And so I've read every book on Walt, and I've just tried to model what he did to grow such a big business. And, I think one of the things that has intrigued me the most is, he died so many years ago, yet his company continues to thrive. And I just hope that when I'm gone, whenever that is, hopefully many years from now, that,
decades, 100 years from now.
Yes. But like that my company will thrive and continue to go without me because of the culture that we create, of the just being a great workplace and just being a place that changes people's lives. And I've kind of modeled it all after the Walt Disney method of building businesses. And speaking of that, like we used to do events together, and you always would help me with my events where we would help doctors learn how to run their offices better, how to build their business. And I always wanted to do an event at the end of those. It was fun where we could just kind of let loose after, fire hosing them with tons of information. And so one of the times there was actually an Imagineer, an original guy named Bob Gurr who was being interviewed. So this guy, he worked with Walt for 13 years up until Walt passed away. He designed the monorail. He basically anything on wheels, he designed. He designed the Matterhorn roller coaster, so many things at Disneyland. So he's like one of the top guys that ever. And I'm like, I got to get these guys over here to be able to talk to a guy that worked with one of the biggest visionaries ever that's ever been around. So we went to that. What I didn't realize was it was actually a promotion for a new movie that was coming out or that a guy was making about Walt. And so we went there. I took my big group there and I really struck up a friendship with him just because of our love for Walt. I went and watched his movie. And long story short, he eventually showed it at a film festival. It got first place in the Orlando Film Festival. And then people started reaching out to him and saying, hey, let's really put this thing together. And because he had done this thing all on his own, went out and interviewed Imagineers and all these different folks. They're like, let's make this thing concise and good so we can get it, on a platform, a streaming platform or in the movie theaters or whatever. So they did that. And then they said, hey, like, who could we work with? And my buddy Tony said, well, Dr. Scott loves Walt, and I think he would love to be a part of this. And so they came to me, and I loved the deck that they had and everything that they were doing. And so I joined in with them to start working on this. And that was about 2.5 years ago that we started doing that and really starting to make this thing what it is today. And it'll come out soon where people can see it, but it's just been a blast. And that's kind of how I got involved, by taking people to meet an original Imagineer that worked with Walt. And that has just kind of steamrolled into where we are today.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what I find fascinating, Dr. Scott, is like as we look at this and how it can marry to business, right? You think about the applications of Disney and what you have studied from, Walt and also applied in your own business and building, for those of you who don't know Scott's background, I'm going to give you the very short version, and Scott, correct me on anything that I don't get, and I'm going to keep it brief, you built, you started as a doc, you built a clinic and then another clinic and another clinic and another clinic and another clinic. And I think you had between 7 and 9 clinics, if I recall. You built them up and then you had this epiphany one day. Well, how can I get out of the day to day? And you started creating operating management systems for the medical practices. And then ultimately got yourself removed from it and brought, great team and partners and training systems in place. And that started to scale. And then ultimately you sold all these clinics and then developed a marketing and business growth system for medical practices. And now you are helping practices all over the country actually grow by using your unique systems plus some of the other technology, STEM, and other things as well with Connect Relief. Is that a quick enough snapshot?
It is. The only thing that I would add, and you can learn about it at connectrelief.com, but I would say started the first national in-home stem cell treatment program back in 2019. And so there's been a lot of folks that have kind of like copied it and that kind of thing and are trying to do it, but we've built an entire network nationwide of medical doctors, nurse practitioners that literally go into people's homes and help them get regenerative medicine treatments. So we are really the conduit. My thought process was like, I have this huge network of doctors, I have this huge network of nurse practitioners and all this, and I know people need what we have. And I thought to myself, like, how could I be like the home advisor, right? Where someone searches online and we can direct them to the best person in their area to get these regenerative treatments done. And so that's what Connect Relief is. We want to help connect you with the best doctor in your area to get relief. And whether that's in an office or that's someone that comes to your home, that's what Connect Relief is all about. And so we started that in 2019, and now we've got the biggest medical group really across the country that does this. And it's just been it's a blast. We love doing that.
And as you're watching or listening right now, again, you might be going, well, how does the Disney thing tie to, and we'll get to that. We're going to get to some strategy. We're going to get to some of the nuances here. Now, as you've, invested 2.5 years in this documentary and that, and of course, decades of studying Walt Disney. I mean, I've always been fascinated by your wisdom around Walt and all the different things. with Disney, Disney World, Walt Disney, the whole, genesis of things, and even now the evolution as of today. What do you think are a couple of the things that you've taken from your study of Walt Disney's business methodologies and you've applied that others could apply, Dr. Scott, that would help them probably grow a more impactful business too?
Yeah, definitely. So, when I realized what you talked about Vinny Fisher earlier, Vinny said something to me back in 2015. He said, Scott, you're never going to grow your business if you're not okay with a 70% version of
Mm.
yourself. And basically, what they're saying is no one's ever going to care about your business as much as you, but you've got to turn into a leader. You've got to turn into someone that is building teams. And so I think of myself now as someone that our companies are teams of teams, right? And our goal is to get the best people on those teams to deliver the best product, world-class service, world-class products. And so I got that really, Vinny said that, and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what Walt did. And there's a famous quote and just conversation that happened. I think you can actually hear the audio of it if you look it up online. But a little kid came up to Walt and he said, "Hello, Mr. Disney. It's nice to meet you. You do the voice of Mickey Mouse, right?" And he said, "No, I actually don't do that." And he said, "Well, you draw Mickey then, right?" He's like, "No, I don't do that either." He's like, "Well, do you do the music or just different things?" And he's like, "Actually, I don't." And he's like, "Mr. Disney, what do you do?" And he said, I like to think of myself like a little bee that's just going around and pollinating, right? I'm just giving little ideas here and there, and then you just let these great teams of people that you put together make this stuff come to life. And so I've really modeled what I've done as like, Scott, you don't have to do everything. Actually, if you're a leader, that's not what you're focused on. You're focused on totally different things, and you're building the teams of the best people. And that has been like my mantra since 2015 is how do I get the best people, build the best teams, and build the best culture. The culture thing I think is why Disney's still around, right? It's because Walt instilled a culture that was, the happiest place on earth, right? And we are going to do it better than anybody else. He always talked about plussing, always do it better, always do it better, make people happy, change people's lives. And, you know, I think it's just that love of what he did and his passion just literally stayed around. And you still see it in people that work at Disneyland and Walt Disney World and all the different Disney entities out there, that so many of them are trying to still carry on what Walt did. And that was all a culture thing. So I focus a lot on being a team leader, getting teams together, and also building that culture. And one of the things that Walt was so good at, that I've actually read this about Andrew Carnegie too, is that he knew exactly what people were good at. He was, Jim Collins in Good to Great talks about getting the right person in the right seat on the bus.
Yep.
That's what Walt was best at, is he knew, like, he would have an animator. He had his nine old men that was, a group of animators that did so many classics that we know. But he took one of them, he said, you're going to go over here. You're going to start developing amusement park rides. And you're going to come over here and you're going to start writing lyrics to songs. You're going to write the Pirates of the Caribbean song. And they're like, what? I've never done that before. Right. And so, but like, he could find and he knew what people would be good at, and he put them in the right place. Even if, they didn't even think they could do it themselves. And it was finding the talent, building the culture, and being the guy to go around and inspire. He never told anybody, do this, do that. He always said, what if? What if we could do this? What if we could do that? And he let them run with their imaginations.
And that's such good wisdom, Dr. Scott. And, as you're watching or listening right now, what are you doing to build your teams and you to remove yourself as a bottleneck to empower your team, to identify and find the talent like Dr. Scott and Disney, to be able to build the culture, to ask the question, well, what if we did this? And what if we did it this way? How would it shift the game for you to allow you to focus on working on the business more versus being the technician in it? And then how would it change the game for you? right? Now, I want to speak to the elephant in the room, Dr. Scott. I know someone might be listening. Oh, I've heard stuff like this before, and I've done that. And, I still find it that it's, getting people is so difficult. So, what would you say to somebody that, hits that roadblock with team members? And then, they kind of, I see this a lot with small companies, right? And I'm sure you have too, where they just, they throw their arms up in the air. Well, if I want something done right, I just need to do it
Myself.
myself, right?
Yep.
And so they go back to that default, call it false belief versus really digging in to grow the team properly. So what would you say to somebody who hits that wall, maybe has a couple times, a couple tips or strategies that you've used? Because you're one of the best I've seen at building the culture, identifying, finding talent, and also being resilient and persistent. And because one or two or 10 or 15 approaches doesn't work, it doesn't mean it doesn't work. As I view it and perceive you, you find a way, and you have found ways, many ways. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that, for me, one of the things, because I've dealt with all of those things before, right? And, one of my problems was I didn't set the right standard in the business. And people aren't going to set higher standards than what you set for them, right? And so what happens is we get team members in and we don't challenge them enough. We let things slide. We don't hold people accountable. And you only get as much as what you're going to expect and inspect. And, we've heard all of that before. But that was the thing with Walt is that, it's like, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be, top notch, world class. And that comes down to us as a leader. What do we let people get away with? And, it's like, let's say we set a guideline that, you can never talk bad about someone in the office, right? Well, your best employee slips up and does it. Are you going to fire them? Are you going to let them slide because they're the best employee and you can't lose them? Right? There's a lot of tough decisions that you have to make as a leader that keep the standards up and keep everyone, in the right culture. And I think that that's one of the things that I had a hard time with early on because I'm kind of like the nice guy. I let people kind of get away with things, but once I started, raising the standard and say, this is how we're going to operate. And, I got the advice one time that my mentor, Randy Davis, he said, Scott, you need to do things in your business that your emotions are telling you not to do. And I was just like, that's right. I'm letting my emotions get in the way of what I really should do. I need to do what I know is right as opposed to how I feel. And so that really changed how I did things, but that really goes back to Walt too. He made sure that everything was the best. And he expected the impossible. Like I have one of my shirts says, it's kind of fun to do the impossible. And that's it's a Walt quote. But like for instance, when they were doing Tomorrow Man's all about basically Walt's dream of Epcot and the city of tomorrow and how they moved into building the Florida project and everything. But they go back to the 64 World's Fair where a lot of that stuff started for Walt. And in that, they had this great moments with President Lincoln, right? They had this animatronic of Abraham Lincoln, which had never been done before, but they were getting pretty close to the fair and they could not get this thing to work. It was spewing oil out everywhere. It was a mess and it was just too heavy. And then there was stuff on it that didn't look right. Like, we got to do this totally different. And so he challenged actually Bob Gurr. He said, Bob, I need this thing half as heavy and twice as strong. And he's like, what? Like, how are we going to do this? But Bob, with his history and what he had done, he started seeing it's like, oh, this isn't like a guy that's filled with all these different parts and different things. I see a fuselage like an airplane, and that if it's hollow, we can cut out a ton of the weight. And so he would challenge people on stuff that most people would never even bring up. Who would go and say, I need half as much weight and twice as strong? And I may be messing that up a little bit, but that's the example or the gist of it. But expecting great things from your people. So many times we don't say things because we think, oh, that might be too hard. It's like we're almost saying no for our team. And I think we do that with our kids too, where you think like they're not old enough yet, they're not smart enough yet, but they're way smarter than we think. And, they can typically do things that blow your mind. Your team members can do that too. And I will tell you, it's more important to have that culture and mission and purpose as well for especially the newer generation. They will work their tails off for a purpose when they know they're changing lives, when they know that they're making a difference. And I think that's missing so much from people. And sometimes they have a mission or vision, but maybe they said it 3 years ago. Your team needs to hear that every month. Your team
Mm.
needs to know what they're working towards, what they're focused on. Share the wins that you've had. Share how far you've come. And so building that culture and that mission and that purpose are all the things that will help you get the most out of your team. There are good people out there. And another part of that is what we call A++ hiring. You don't just hire anybody, right? Everyone says hire slow, fire fast. We've heard that. But, are you really taking people through all the processes that you need to hire them, right? Like when we hire salespeople for our program, they have to watch videos, they have to respond, they have to do their own presentation, they have to send it in, they have to go through a very long test to see if they're even a candidate. And there's a lot of people that, I mean, probably 90% of the people that come through our funnel are eliminated right off the bat. Now,
Yep.
that shrinks the pool for us, but guess what? We know they're going to be good. We know that they're going to have the skills, the drive, and everything once we get them. So have your mission and purpose, build your culture, but also on the front end, make sure that you're getting the right people and that you're really screening them and looking for the right person for the job. Don't just don't just hire someone because they're your friend or your family. Find a position, outline what that position is, and then hire exactly for that and take nothing less than the best.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much wisdom here, Dr. Scott. I'm going to unpack that as you're watching or listening right now. Literally, you're going to probably want to rewind the last 8 minutes and come back to it because literally, if you want, I mean, Dr. Scott is being very humble, but he's done hundreds of millions of dollars in business between him and his practices, portfolio clients, and more over the years. And the bottom line is number one is be thinking A plus plus hiring, right fit people. Number two is once you get right fit people, don't set them up to fail. How do you set them up to win? You set them up to win by you're clear on your mission, your vision, your values. And then if you heard what you heard Scott say, which is you've got to communicate these things, your vision regularly, your mission regularly, your values regularly. And also, what are the expectations regularly? Not the first time you bring them in and then that's it. And then you just call it out as they go. No, you're reviewing it. You're calling expectation to it. The standard is the standard, right? And if you will really, and I've seen Dr. Scott do this. I've seen the type of teams he's created. I've seen him, work with people who were struggling in the beginning and ultimately became A++ performers even in the beginning when they were struggling. And so if you're looking for a way to be able to build a strong culture, to build a strong team, to get yourself removed from the business, yes, is it a commitment? Yeah, you've got to do that little extra with each of these things we're talking about that most people, when you talk about mission, vision, values, culture, they're platitudes. They're written
Yeah, I
down in
mean,
some book or they're put on a wall and they are reviewed maybe once every 3 years, like Dr. Scott mentioned, versus being reinforced daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, and then updated as the company continues to evolve. So as you're watching or listening, I hope you'll take action with what Dr. Scott is sharing with you on this. And if you want to get a brief overview of some of the things that he's doing, you can go to connectrelief.com just to get a snapshot, and or if you're in the space, which we'll talk a little bit more directly of why to go there and how you benefit from that as well. Dr. Scott, speaking of which, if people want to reach you and connect with you, one, who would be ideal to connect with you? And two, where can they go to learn more about what you're up to?
yeah, I mean, Connect Relief really is the place to go to see what we're doing. Honestly, like the main people that we help right now are people suffering in pain, right? People that, have tried everything. They've tried all the cortisone, the Synvisc, Orthovisc, all these different joint injections and pain pills and physical therapy and all that. And if you're just at the, end of your rope and you're trying to find something in your area, we'll help you find that person in your area that can help you do something that's cutting edge, right? Something, the new thing everyone hears about, stem cell and regenerative medicine and all that. We can connect you with the right people to get that done so that you can finally get out of pain and get out of suffering. So, and then also I have a company called Platinum Biologics that we actually supply regenerative medicine products to medical doctors and medical clinics. So, if you're looking for that, go on the website of Platinum Biologics. You can schedule a peer-to-peer call with our medical team and medical advisory board to see what you can do there as well.
So if you're looking for a way and you're, at your last wit's end to reduce pain, reduce suffering, get out of pain and suffering, go to connectrelief.com. That's connectrelief.com. If you're looking for, alternatives and you want to have a deeper conversation about, the supply chain and being a part of that with Dr. Scott, potentially as a partner otherwise, and have a peer-to-peer conversation, go to Platinum Biologics. That's Platinum Biologics as well. Now, Dr. Scott, as we kind of wrap this up, right? We've talked about things you've learned from the movie experience and Walt Disney tied to business. What's something I should have asked you that we didn't have a chance to cover in our short time together?
Oh man,
I mean, we've got 15 years of history, and we literally could take 15 years to go through this journey for sure. But what's something I should have asked you we didn't do yet?
You know what? I think like I was reflecting on this today, and I think a good question is, did you ever think that this is where you'd be with this giant medical group across the country producing a movie on Walt Disney? And the reason I say that is because I never knew at the beginning of my journey where I would end up, where and I always wanted to be a person that helped as many people as possible, right? When I started out as a chiropractor. And, the reason I say this is if you have worked years and years and years towards a goal and are just wondering, when's it going to happen for me? When is my breakthrough going to come? The reality is keep your moonshot, keep that goal ahead of you, because the biggest and best goals, you're never going to know how to reach them, right? That's the definition of a moonshot. When John F. Kennedy said we're going to go to the moon, we didn't know how we were going to do it, right? It's a moonshot. You shouldn't know how you're going to do it, but just keep working towards it every single day. Don't, a lot of people go into the valley of despair where you start something and typically it starts to ramp up and then it gets real hard, right? And most people bail and go start something new. Don't do that. Stick in your field. Because I did that on a few things and I got distracted. Dan, you know that. I got distracted a few times, but once I came back to the regenerative medicine and, helping people the way that I did and just dove into that 100%, things started happening. And I just started talking to people, meeting with people, seeing how we could work together and just, assembling different teams and great people. But all I'm going to say is that, if you're discouraged at all at where you're at, just keep your moonshot in front of you every day and just think of what's the one needle mover today that's going to get me closer to that. I know I don't have all the answers right now, but I know if I do this, that at the end of the week, I'll be a little bit further here. I know the next week I'm going to pick something. I'm going to be a little bit further at the end of that week. That's how it happens. So keep dreaming. And that comes back to something that Walt always said: believe, dream, dare, do. Okay. And what I feel like is that most people have a problem with the belief part, even though they'll tell you they don't, even though they tell you, I know I can do this. But if you quit, you can't do it. You wouldn't quit if you knew you could do it. And
Yep.
that's the thing is Walt got so far on that Abraham Lincoln thing, probably a lot of people will be like, there's no way we can do this, right? But no, he believed he was going to do it. You dream all the possibilities, you dare to do it, and then you take action. So just take massive action and keep your belief that you can do this. Don't let, usually when you think of something that is really big in your life, your moonshot, what happens is your mind starts telling you every reason you can't do it, right? If let's say you're making $100,000 a year and you're like, I want to make 1 million, what's the first thing that's going to pop in your head? I can't do that. I've never made $1 million before. How are you going to do that? You don't come from that kind of a background. Like all this stuff starts happening, right? And I would just encourage people to fight that voice and say, no, I believe, and I'm going to take action today towards my goal. So I would just encourage people to really believe and fight off the voices telling you not to do it and stay focused even through those hard times. And that's when you're going to get to the top.
And so if you're watching or listening right now, I challenge you as well. Believe, dream, dare, do, take massive action. And as I think it's Bill Gates quote, Dr. Scott, we've talked about, we can be shocked at what we can accomplish in 10 years, right? And it's like this overnight success versus many times we underestimate what we can do in a year,
Yep.
right? We think we're going to do so much more and or I'm sorry, we overestimate what we can do in a
Overestimate. Yeah.
year. We underestimate what we can do in 10 years. And if
Amen.
you'll take that, both short and long-term focus, massive action daily to hit that, you'll be amazed at where you can be. I mean, just imagine Dr. Scott, who never thought he'd ever be partnered with founders and, some of the principles of Disney. Think about that. Coming from a chiropractic background, who had a single clinic at one time, and then he just had dared to dream. He believed, he dared, he went for it. He then took the action and has stayed consistent over the years. And I tip my hat to you, Dr. Scott. I'm just so proud of our relationship, partnership, friendship over the years and everything that you're doing. What would be 1 to 3 action steps you hope our viewers would take from our time together today?
Review your moonshot, review your goals, and really think about what you really want. Don't don't settle. A lot of times it's like, I want this for my family, I want this for my kids, I want to do this, and then it's not going as you want because we overestimate what we can do in that year, and we're 2, 3 years in. But well, I would just encourage you to revisit what you really want. Don't say, "Oh, I didn't want that anyway. I don't need that." No, like you want the best for your family. You want the best to be able to give and help other people. So revisit it and really understand what you really want. And then just pick goal, one goal for the next week and say, I'm going to do this next week because it's going to move the needle. And what you're going to have to do is do that with no distractions.
Mm.
So all the fires that happen in business happen to all of us. But you know what? My team knows that if you can't get a hold of Dr. Scott, you can't get a hold of Dr. Scott because I'm focused on the things that I have to get done that week or that day. And I'm going to do everything I have to get it done. And then I'll go look at messages. You know, ignore your Slack messages, ignore your text messages, ignore your phone calls, and get your goal done, right? So revisit what you really want, write down that one goal. Don't make it any more than that. One thing, and then block your time to be able to get that done and don't let anything stop you from doing it.
He's Dr. Scott. I encourage you, if you're looking for a way to be able to, get out of pain or know somebody who wants to get out of pain and or suffering as it relates to pain, go to connectrelief.com. Connectrelief.com starts with a K. If you're looking for a way to potentially, connect, collaborate, partner, see other options in the space, you can go to Platinum Biologics and be at the front edge of regenerative medicine strategies. Platinum Biologics. Schedule your one-to-one conversation and check out what Dr. Scott is doing. Check out the movie. Again, all the links will be down below so you can take advantage of that. I know, we've gotten a chance to know each other on a personal basis, Scott, and, your wife, your kids. So here's a personal question I'd like to ask you. Like, what's something that you'd love to, if you think of your wife and how she's shown up for you?
Dan, you know me. You're going to make me cry, man.
This is like Roy Firestone at ESPN. I don't know if you
Oh,
remember that,
man.
right? But yeah, I'm not going to cry, Roy. I'm not going to cry, Roy.
Oh,
Okay, well, we'll
jeez.
see. So, she's shown up, mom, your kids, you're a dad. Like this, is one of the things that we, as you know, in our model, we talk about. It's like without sacrificing your health and your family, right? Because you can
Yep.
do both, and you can hit these big goals and have
That's
moons.
what it's all about, man. Don't sacrifice that.
Yep. So what would you thank her for, Scott, in how she's shown up to help give you a platform to be your very best as a
You know,
man, as a husband, and a founder?
man, so like I was just telling one of my team members earlier, like 2015, I was at a conference and our daughter was 13 months old. And so this is the conference where I met Vinny. It's the conference where I met a guy named Charlie Livingston, who actually connected me with the team to medically integrate my practice, which is why I got into stem cell, which is why I'm standing here in front of you today. So speaking of not knowing what you can do in 10 years, this is exactly 10 years ago. Okay. And she was having a super tough time, but she said, "You need to go to this. You need to do this." And like she has done that so many times. So like just she takes care of everything, like no matter what. She's like, "I know you need to do this. I know this is good for us." And she understands that it's I'm doing it for the family. And then, like I'll do that stuff, but then, I'll take a whole week off so I can be with them, right? Like I figure out that balance so I can spend the time with them. But I mean, she homeschools the girls. She does everything around the house. Like she's, raising the girls as God-fearing girls that love Jesus. And
That's amazing, Dr. Scott. And, thanks for giving us a glimpse into your personal side as well, which isn't always really talked about in business, right? And why I do that in the show as you're watching or listening right now is why, because, this is not a one-sided model. Like it's not
oh,
business, 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 and that's it. And, I don't believe, and I know you don't believe, Dr. Scott, that you work 100+ hours, give up everything, sacrifice everything. You can have, there's not, I don't believe in balance, but I believe you can integrate. And if you set
yep,
the goals right, and your business is important, your family is important, and your relationships and your health are important, those four main things, and it starts usually with God on top of it. But if you have those aligned, then your front stage, your backstage are aligned and it all can work together. It's not easy as you're watching right now or listening, but ideally you can feel the sense of what Dr. Scott and his passion, because like he mentioned the goal, and not that we're all on track 100%, none of us are, we're not robots, we're human beings. And at the same time, is don't forget the why you're doing this in the first place, for your
yep,
chances are for your freedom and what that means to you, whether it's more time with your daughters or your spouse or to travel or to enjoy other opportunities that come your way inside, but also outside of the business too. And it's okay. It's okay. Just so you hear that and give yourself permission that you're not a robot. You don't have to, commit 100+ hours a week and
mhm.
not do other things and not be in a place where you are healthy in those other areas of life. So, Dr. Scott, of course, I'm a big fan, and I certainly have appreciated our partnership relationship over all these years. What's one last thing that you would share with our viewers before we wrap this up officially?
You will be getting, there will be news soon about this Tomorrow Man movie, and you will get to see it soon as we're talking with folks about wrapping it up. And just look forward. It's a really great insight into who Walt was, his passion, his vision. And I think that you'll get more out of that than you will out of me sharing anything else. So check it out. It'll probably be on a streaming service at some point, and it'll be worth watching.
And we'll get the links to the trailer. And as updates come in, we'll look to get those here posted for you as well. So there you have it. Take action with what Dr. Scott has shared. What would happen for you if you buy into the idea that you got to believe, dream, dare, do, take massive action, to review your moonshots and don't settle? Get clear on what you want and also what you don't want. And then you pick one main focus goal and don't let distractions get in the way. What if you get clear on your A team, your A plus plus team, and on top of that, you create a culture around your mission, your vision, your values, and you're constantly, consistently, and frequently connecting with your team and building them through the communication of the expectations as it relates to those things? How would your business change? How much quicker and easier would it be to remove yourself from the day to day so you can grow, scale exponentially without sacrificing your family, your health, or your relationships? What would that be worth? Take action, seize the day, We'll see you on another session down the road. Bye for now.